When you picture the Himalayas, you probably think of these massive, serene mountain peaks, maybe some quiet monasteries. But what's hiding just beneath that peaceful surface is one of the most wild, complex, and fascinating religious histories on the entire planet. It's a world just teeming with gods, demons, and spirits. So that brings up the big question, right? How did this incredibly sacred place end up with such a tangled web of beliefs, all competing and overlapping with each other? Well, the answer is a story of conquest, of rivalry, and in the end, a really brilliant kind of synthesis. See, this isn't some nice, clean story with a beginning, middle, and end. It's messy. Think of it more like layers of rock, like geological strata, where each new layer of belief was built right on top of the last one. So to really understand the gods of the Himalaya today, we've got to do a little digging. We have to excavate that history, layer by layer. So, here's our plan. We're going to start at the very bottom with the primal animistic foundation. Then, we'll look at the arrival of the two big players, Brahmanism and Buddhism. After that, we'll dive into the great divine rivalry inside Hinduism itself, see how they finally managed to patch things up, and then, to finish, we'll see how all those ancient spirits of the land got brought back into the fold. Let's get started. Okay, so every great structure has to have a foundation, right? And in the Himalayas, the absolute bedrock of all belief is this primal ancient system. It was there long before the big organized religions that we all know today ever showed up. And that foundation is animism. It's this core belief that everything in the natural world, and I mean everything, every rock, every river, every single mountain peak, has a spirit living inside it. Now, this wasn't some organized religion with a single big god. It was a messy, complicated world of local powers, what you might call a polydaemonism. The spirits that really mattered were the ones right in your backyard. And what was the main emotion driving this whole belief system? It was fear, pure and simple. This quote just nails it. This wasn't about loving some benevolent god. Nope, this was about appeasing the spirits that were unpredictable, often cranky, and could totally ruin your day or your whole village. The evil spirits, the ones you had to keep happy, they got way more attention than the good ones. This is the primal layer everything else is built on.
All right, let's build on that foundation. So into this world full of local spirits, two huge organized religions arrive on the scene. Brahmanism, which is the forerunner of modern Hinduism, and its great rival, Buddhism. And believe me, this was not just some quiet, philosophical debate. This was an all-out battle for the hearts and minds of the people.
Now, what's so fascinating when you look at this is how totally different they were when they started. Brahmanism was all about empowering the priestly class with a whole roster of gods to worship. Buddhism, on the other hand, started as a protest against that very idea. It wasn't about worship, it was about escaping suffering. But, and here's the twist, to win over the local people who were already steeped in all this magic and spirit worship, both religions ended up doing something very similar. They tapped into that vulgar love of mystery and magic and started absorbing the local demons and spirits into their own systems. So, who won? Well, in the Himalayas, it wasn't a clean knockout. It was more like a hostile takeover. Brahmanism didn't wipe out Buddhism. It basically just swallowed it whole. Buddhist shrines got converted into temples for the Hindu god Shiva, and Buddhist priests were just folded into the Saiva tradition. This idea of absorption, it is absolutely key to understanding everything that happens next. But the story is far from over. Because inside Brahmanism itself, a new rivalry exploded. And this was a conflict so deep that it literally shaped the gods themselves. This was the epic contest between the Saivas, the worshippers of the god Shiva, and the Vaishnavas, the followers of the god Vishnu. Now, to really get this rivalry, you have to know something about Vishnu, who would become one of the most important gods in all of Hinduism. See, he didn't start out that way. Not even close. In the earliest sacred texts, the Vedas, he's a pretty minor player, just one of 12 sun gods. Even these huge cosmic acts, like creating the entire world, were originally credited to other gods. This timeline here basically shows his incredible climb to the top. Over centuries, in later texts, the great deeds of other gods they get reassigned to Vishnu. And then came the masterstroke, the great epics. Through his incarnations, as the hero Rama in the Ramayana, and especially as the beloved Krishna in the Mahabharata, Vishnu went from being a minor god to the supreme being for millions of people. But the followers of Shiva, they weren't just going to take this lying down. You can see the tension right there in the texts. This passage is amazing. It shows Krishna, Vishnu's most powerful incarnation, having to go and ask Shiva for a weapon. For the Saivas writing this, the message was crystal clear. Shiva, or Mahadeva, he's the boss. But oh, the Vaishnavas got the last laugh. In later edits to the exact same epic, they flipped the script completely. Now you've got Shiva himself singing Krishna's praises, saying Krishna is superior to everyone, that the creator god Brahma came from Krishna's belly, and Shiva himself came from Krishna's head. I mean, that is a theological checkmate. It was a brilliant piece of PR that sealed Vishnu's rise to the top. This kind of intense rivalry, it just can't last forever. It's like two tectonic plates grinding against each other. Eventually, something has to give. And what came out of it wasn't a victory for one side. It was something way more interesting, a remarkable synthesis, a reconciliation of the entire pantheon of gods.
And you can actually see this process playing out in their mythology. There are these incredible stories of massive battles between Shiva and Vishnu, like this one at Badari, right in the Himalayas, a fight so huge that the creator god Brahma himself had to fly in and break it up. And these myths, they probably reflect real-world violent clashes between the two sects that were happening in those exact same places. So how do you fix a problem like having two supreme gods? Well, the solution the philosophers came up with was just brilliant. They identified these two rivals with cosmic forces that completed each other. Shiva, the fierce, destructive one, became Agni, fire, storm, heat. Vishnu, the preserver, became Soma, the moon, coolness, water. All of a sudden, they weren't enemies anymore. They were two essential halves of a single working universe, fire and water. You need both. And there was another key idea that helped stitch everything together, and that was Sakti, the divine feminine energy. This concept that a male spirit, or Purusha, has to unite with female nature, Prakriti, to create anything, well, it provided a perfect framework. It meant different gods could just be different expressions of one male energy, and each one could have his own female counterpart, his own Sakti. It's an amazing example of how a philosophical idea can solve a real-world religious war. Okay, so we've seen how the big religions fought it out, and how the civil war within Hinduism was finally resolved. But what about that very first layer? What happened to all those ancient spirits of the land we started with?
Well, they weren't erased. They were absorbed. And this is the final and maybe the most important piece of the puzzle. The new, unified Brahmanical system made room for the old local gods. The Kshetrapala, the guardian of your fields, the terrifying Eri who wanders the forests at night, the powerful serpent gods, the Nagas, even local heroes who became gods like Goril. All of them were given a seat at the table in this ever-expanding family of gods.
And let's be honest, this wasn't just some act of kindness. It was a brilliant strategy. By honoring the gods that the people actually worshipped day to day, the priestly class could bring everyone under their authority. It was the final move in that centuries-long struggle for the people's soul. So in the end, what you're left with isn't one single, neat religion. It's a living tapestry. It's this incredible fabric woven from all these different threads. The ancient threads of animism, the big rivalries of Buddhism and Brahmanism, the cosmic dance of Shiva and Vishnu, and all of the countless local spirits of the mountains themselves.
And that kind of leaves us with one last thought. This incredible story of conflict and absorption and synthesis, it's not just about some ancient gods on faraway mountains. It's a blueprint for how culture itself gets made. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What forgotten rivalries and ancient spirits are woven into the fabric of our own beliefs, hiding just below the surface?